popular items requested for these webinars is VisRep, the visual reporter. And rather than just go through features just for their own sake and one by one a list of things it can do, we thought we'd go through 4 scenarios, 4 things that we think people may want to do in VisRep and take you through them. Now, in doing that, you'll pick up an awful lot about VisRep and various features it has, but we'll be sticking to these 4 tasks to show you how to actually achieve those tasks. The task we're doing is getting a list of donors who've given at least one donation of more than $100 in a date range, using styles to format reports, setting up a report to export data from the menu, and reporting on a text file or another external file. I'll be doing the first 2, and then Gary Lincoln will be going through with the second one, the next 2. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, go into this reporter, and we'll do the first topic. I'm logging on. I'm going to go into Reporter and Visual Reporter, and I'll maximise it so you can see it. Now, the topic I've chosen here is how to find a list of people who've given exactly $100 in a particular frame of time. And I'm deliberately not making it a year, because if you chose a year, you might be able to use the donor file to report on using the total this year or total last year. So I'm deliberately making it a range that's not, that you can't just get from the donor file, because the donor file tells us what someone's given in total and what they're given in this year, but you can't look at individual donations. So in order to do this, we'll need to go to the donation file. So I'm going to go to, the first thing you do in a visual report is to pick the data file. So I'm picking the data file, and the most common files you use are up the top: donors, donation, campaign, and pledge. All the others are alphabetical. So if you need to report on something else like bequest or something, it's down there alphabetically. But I'll pick the donation file, and we need a sort order. So for the sake of it, I'll say donation date, because I am going to be doing a date range, and that will make it faster. If I order in donation date and then select by date, it'll just go to exactly those records. It won't have to go through every record. At least initially, that's the way it'll go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 2 criteria in. I'm going to say I want donations where the donation date is greater than or equal to 1st of the 1st, 2014. So that I want to know about everybody who's given at least a single donation of $100 or more this year. So my next criteria is going to be donation amount greater than or equal to $100. Now, next I have to decide what I want to be in my report. So I'm going to pick from the donation file the amount, the campaign code, the donation date. Now I can double click, or I can just highlight and move it across. So I can click on donation type and click add. But double clicking is another way of doing it. And I can also pick from the donor file by clicking up here and pick a donor file item like first name and surname. So now I'll click on my preview, and there I have my report, and it's wonderful. I've got everything there, and you can see the amounts are all over $100. Now there's one more field that I want. I'm going to go back to data, and that is donor number. So I'll just go to donor number and have that out there. Now the other thing about Visual Reporter is that you don't have to be stick with what you see on the screen. If you're not happy with the order, you can just simply drag an item and move it across, which is one of its wonderful benefits. You can do everything visually. So we have the donor numbers here. Now for this particular report, I'm going to change the sort order to donor number, because what I want you to see is that here's the problem. Look at 504. You see that donor is there twice, Denise showing up. So the little report I've written has achieved our goal. We do know everybody that's given a donation of $100 or more this year. The problem is that if someone's given more than one donation of $100, they'll be listed twice in the report. So if we simply just want to list the donors who've given a single donation of $100, we're out of luck, because we're going to list the same person over and over again through the report. So what I want to show you is a trick with Visual Reporter to show you how you can actually get around that and end up with one record at a time. Now, the thing about a reporter it's unlike the appeal selection program, which has a lot of internal logic and programming and tricky things behind it. A reporter simply looks at one record at a time. It really doesn't know, it doesn't have a memory, it can't work out, has this donor already given before? It's just looking at one record and using the criteria. But what it can do, and what we've built into this, is sort of remember what the very last record was. And we've made it, in this report, there's an option where it can remember what the last donor number was that it presented. So that I'm going to click on Data on File now, and one of our options is to save report data. Now, if we save it as a text file, we'll be creating a comment-limited or tab-limited text file, and Gary will be taking you through some options with that. But what I'm going to do is choose a selection file. Now, with a selection file, we have to give it a name, so I'm going to call it over or at least 100 this year. Okay, now you see the little box there which says remove duplicates? That's the trick, that's the magic. Because this is a donation file, not the donor file, it knows there could be multiple records for the one person. If I uncheck remove duplicates, we'll get a selection file with exactly the same numbers that we're seeing on the screen now, which will of course duplicate them. But by checking remove duplicates, it does two things. Even if we were running our report in date order on the screen, it would actually change it to donor number order. Now the reason it does that is that's the only way it can know what the last number was. That it can say, right, I'm going in donor number order, I've output donor 10, now let's look at the next record. Is that the same as the last one? If it was the same as the last one, it says skip it. So by checking remove duplicates and OK, I'm now getting my report, and instead of getting the number I had before, I'm only getting unique records. So what I'm getting now are just the individual donors who've got the same, who've given over $100, and I've eliminated those 2 409s and maybe the 2 235, the 3 235 ones, and only one for each one. Now, what can I do with that selection file? Well, obviously I could go back to the appeal selection program in Donman, and I could go to, I could produce a mail merge file for those people. I'm just going to take you through one thing though. Suppose that you still want to use Visual Reporter. Suppose you actually want those people, but you want to pick particular fields to output. Maybe you want their phone number because you're going to ring them for telemarketing. So we need to have some way that we can go back and report on them, but only have one record for each person. And this is where we can go up with the lookup selections. So if I go into lookup selections and generate a selection lookup, and it says what selection file do you want to use, and I'm going to say at least 100 this year, the one we just ran. And I'm going to say clear the lookup file first so that the records we're reading are the only that are there. Now what this will do is create a little database, the lookup database, with the numbers, the names, the donor numbers of the people we've just generated. Now the reason I've done that is because we go back into Visual Reporter. So I haven't left Visual Reporter, I'm going back to it. But now instead of reporting on the donor file or the donation file, which we know gives us duplicates or the donor file is not adequate, we can come down to lookup now. And because we've filled the lookup file with just the people we want, we can now report on lookup or donors and produce a report using both. Now I ran one today with this same thing, so I'm going to open a report format. It's called From Lookup 100 this year. And now I have a report that's nicely formatted, and it has just the people who've given exactly $100 this year, but each person is only listed once. There are no duplicates, but I'm able to choose whatever fields I want. I'm not limited by anything. I can use anything from the lookup file or from the donor file and from my report. So that's the way of getting a dedupe list of just the people who've given $100. And of course, I can do it for a different date range as well. So let me just open the report format I used before. Donated 100 this year. I wanted to show you one more thing. I chose the date, 1st of the 1st, 2014. I think what's really important for you to remember is this little formula button. So if I click on the formula button, it tells me about my formulas. But those formulas are actually very easy to remember. When you have a date in a visual report or report, if you look down the bottom of the screen, it'll repeat the date. So it says 1st to 1st 2014, and down the bottom, 1st to 1st 2014. So if I use one of the shortcuts, if I type Y, now Y in Visual Reporter stands for the first day of the current year. And look what's down the bottom, 1st to 1st 2014. If I type F, 1st to 2nd 2013, so that's the first day of the current financial year. If I type W, it's this week. So if I clicked on Preview now, maybe there are none this week. Let's do month. And there we are, this month. So there are the $100 donations this month. Now the advantages of using M and F is that that report will be good whenever you run it. So if I run this in 3 months' time, I'll be getting this month's donations. So that's just a quick guide to how to actually find a group of people who've given something, using the donation file to find them, but using selection file to deduce them, so I only get one for each record. Now, the next topic I'm going to show you, which I'm not sure everybody uses a lot, and I think it's really useful, is what we call styles. So what we have is a very basic report here: donor number, amount, campaign, donation date. Let me add a few more items. Now from the donor file, I'll pick the title, first name and surname. And there they are, and I'm going to move the surname here, and the title there, and the first name here. And I'm going to grab the top of the report and drag it down, leaving some space. I'm going to right-click and go to title. I'm going to give this report a title. It's donors who have given at least $100 each year. So I've got my title there, and I've got everything I need. However, it's pretty ugly. Now, we do have some options up the top. We have left justify, which is where it is now. Everything's over the left. I have right, and I have center. So center's a bit nicer. The fonts are pretty ugly. So if we go to fonts, we can choose the title font. So the title we want to make a bit bigger. So let's make it bold, or not black, bold, and let's make it 14 points. So now we have, if we say OK, you can see what that's done. What I should do is learn to type list. Okay, so now let's have a graphic there. So let's right-click and go to Image. So I'm going to say Has an Image, and I'm going to find an image, and we have a little test logo. The Donman logo with ASI colours. Now it's much too big, so I'm just going to simply shrink it down. Let's make it square. Okay, now you can maybe see that could be your company logo, your organisational logo. So I've stuck that in the middle, and I'm going to go back to fonts, and I'm going to change the body font from Arial to Arial Rounded. There we go, that's changed that. I'm not saying you want that. And then the font will make the heading 11 points. No, that must be the subheading I need to do. Upper subheading. Maybe it's page header. Okay, make that 11 points. Okay. So now we've got a bigger font on the heading. We can also do things like change the colour. So the subheader font, let's make it red. You have a colour printer. And you'll notice that, I keep getting that wrong, don't I? It's header. that does that. You notice that as I do it, it shows you what it will look like on this preview screen, and now I see it in the report. Now, that's not that exciting, but you get the idea that what I've done is I'm setting this up the way I like with the logo in the position I want. Now, if I save that style, I'm going to save that style and call it test. That's my test webinar format. Now, one of the things I can always test to, there's another way of saving it. There's a thing called the default style. Now, the default style is the one that every new report is based on. But if I were to save this as my default style, every new report would look like this. But what I'm going to do is show you something. I'm going to go and open the report format again, and from take a different report, and I'm going to just apply the style and say test webinar, and have everything is just adjusted perfectly. Or let's start again from scratch. Let's go to the donor file and pick donor number, surname, first name, title, total this year, count this year, total last year, count last year, and criteria, donors, surname, starts with S. So now I have all the people that surname starts with S, and I have a fairly boring looking report, but it works. But now I can go and apply style and go test webinar, and everything is formatted the way I wanted to, the way I've decided. Just give you an idea what you can do with this is here's the Pokemon, the Pokemon style. So you can, there's no end to the things you can do in this to choose how you want things to be. And the ideal thing about this is you can set things like whether it's going to be landscape or portrait, what the colors will be, what the fonts will be. When you get it right, when you get it the way you want your organization reports to look like, you can save that as a default font, and then every report you do from then on will always be in that format, or you can just take the report and turn it into that format. So that's my bit for today. I'll now hand over to Gary, who'll take you through the other two topics.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Thanks, Andrew. So what we're going to look at now is sort of a carry-on of a bit of what Andrew showed you, where sometimes there's people that have said, look, I just need to do a list of people, and it's pretty much just, half a dozen fields, and there's always going to be those same fields that I might use to, upload to an online mailing system or anything like that, but I don't need to keep regenerating the report or even see the result on the screen. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that when you set up a report in the system, you can go through and say, what I want to do is now, which Andrew showed previously, that you can export to a selection file, that you can export to a text file. So what we're going to do is look at that first of all. So I'm already in the Visual Report Writer. So if I choose my data file, and in this case I'll choose donors, I then get the option to sort. In this case, if I'm doing an email list, especially if I'm sending an email and it's going through Outlook, etc., it's normally much easier to follow the status of where your emails have got to if you do it alphabetically. If you do it by donor number, it's not very easy to figure out where you've got to. Where if you know that you can look through your askbox and say that, okay, look, it's up to the S's in the emails, I can sort of go through from there. For my criterion, in this particular case, if I bring up the list of fields and just type an E, that'll take me straight to the email field. So if I double click on that, so I'm looking for email greater than nothing. So in this case, that will be any donor record that has got something in the email field, because the email field itself has got rules when you put it in about trying to validate that it's at least got the ampersand in there and it's at least got a .com or something like that as part of the email address in order to say, yes, you can put that into the system. So I don't necessarily, at this point here, have to say that the donor, email has to include the ampersand or has to include .com or anything like that. I can just say anything that's greater than nothing. Okay. From there, I can then choose my fields. So just like Andrew showed before, if I just double-click, So I'm looking for first name, surname, and again, I'm looking for the email field. So in this particular case, that may be the only fields that I'm looking for. So I don't need names and addresses and postcodes and phone numbers or anything like that. I'm just setting this up to be a file that I can export and upload to a online mailing system. So if I preview it and go, okay, yes, that's fine, I'm getting it, and we can see that it is basically in alphabetic order based on the person's name. So if I set File, Save Report Data, where Andrew previously showed you a selection file, and if everyone remembers, the selection file is nothing but a list of donor numbers. In this case, I'm going to say text, and I can give it a name here. Okay, so if I just call it in this particular case. Okay, so yes. Okay, so you can see the system's now going through based on the criteria, and will then create a text file in my working directory, which for most people will be in your DM work directory, and it'll just be called emaillist.txt. So that's good when I'm doing a one-off, so I won't sit there and wait for this particular one to finish. So if I close that, so that would be good if I'm just doing a one-off. But if I'm doing something a little bit more consistent, what I might do is first of all save my report format, because whatever I call the report, the text file that is generated by the report will always be the same name with the .txt extension. So that means every time I generate this report, I know the text file is going to be updated. Yeah. So the same sort of thing, I could then go, yes, I want to save the report data as text, and I'll still have the text file. Doing it this way means that I still have to go through the process of going through reports, through Reporter, Visual Report Writer, and then opening up my report. So that's fine for some things, but lots of times you say, look, I just want to basically do what everyone wants, is click on the button and have it happen. So in order for that to happen, what you can do is if you go up to Options on the menu, there is a option on this menu, which is Alt F8, which allows you to get one of those saved reports and add it to your user menu. So the user menu is up the top of the screen. You'll see the Start menu and the Main menu, but the user menu is where I basically can put anything that I like. So any particular options on the menu, if I said, look, when I'm at this screen here, I want to quickly be able to get to, view an archive record or a prospect or something like that. So I can't necessarily change this, and I don't every time want to have to go through the whole system here to, get in and say, okay, now go to Archives, View, Edit, Archive Records. However, if I right-click on that item, you can see the first option on the menu says Add it to your user menu. So if I click on there, say, yes, I want to add that. When I go back to my user menu, I've now got View, Edit, Archive Records. So it really is just a shortcut menu for yourself for things that you might, quite commonly go into, or reports that you've saved that you want to do. So in this particular case here, I've got the email list. If I right-click on it and go to Properties, I'll just remove it and we'll start again.
Gary, while you're there, I just need to let everybody know, and I'm really sorry about this, but it turns out there's a fire drill about to happen to the building in a couple of minutes. We can keep going, but there will be a loud bell noise in the background, so which should be preserved for posterity. But anyway, I just thought I'd warn you.
Just on you, Andrew. So as long as you're not talking at the time, we'll be right.
Yeah, a little bit of bad timing, but that's the way things go. So in this case, I haven't got any of these saved Visit reports on my user menu at the moment. So if I go through Options, Add Visit, Save Report, I've now got the Browse button at the top here, and you can see just about every report that you've generated, you'll be able to see. In this case here, I've got my email list. I can get rid of the VisRep report, or if I was doing it, say, for MailChimp or something like that, then I can just say, so just call the report exactly what you want it to be on the menu, and then save. And now if I click on there, by default it's going to take me straight into VisRep and start running the report. But then I still have to go and get through the option of saying I want to export it to text. So in this case, what we're going to look at is a way to sort of shortcut that. So if I now right-click on my option, go to Properties, that's beautiful. Okay, let me delete that. It's for some reason not showing me the properties. When I create the file, or create the link on the menu, I'll just go back to the report. Okay. So I'll put the name in again. Okay. So in this case, where I've got the name of the actual report, which has got the RPF extension, if I click there and put a space T, that means by default the report or the link, when I click on it, will create the text file in the DMWork directory called MailChimp email.list. So if I save that, and you'll see the difference when I click on it now, it's not opening the report at all. It's basically just running through the data and extracting my text file. Yeah, so there's quite a few cases where people have said to me, or have inquired through tech support of, can I just do this? Can I get just these fields? And it's consistently always these fields, and I can do it that way. So you can see that if you've set up the base report, and it doesn't particularly need to be, an export to text file like I've done in this case, but really any report that you've generated, because you might have, as you can see in my list here, quite a few reports that you've saved or run in the past. But from that, you might say, look, I only need 2 or 3 reports on my particular user menu. And it will only be on your menu. Okay? So you can go through and add things. And just like I did before, if there's something on here you said, I don't want any more, right-click and just remove it. Okay? So it really is customizable for yourself. So the other thing that we're going to look at now is that we've now looked at exporting text file. So sometimes people may send you a text file that you said, look, I now want to be able to do some report on it or just extract certain columns, etc. So I can also do that using the Visual Report Writer. So if we go back into the program and do File, and in this case I'm going to go to Import Report Data from a text file. So where traditionally I'm just exporting straight from my donor files, I'm basically looking for something else in this case. So if I go up, okay, so I've got my text file here that somebody sent me and said, look, I just want to, pull some of the data out of that and make a report. So if I choose that, just like it sort of does when you open it in Excel, it's showing me here's the raw data. If you're not quite sure how the data is separated, you've got auto detect up the top here, and whether it's got double quotes or single quotes around it, but for most things, unless it's a special formatted file, the system itself should just automatically be able to dictate that. So if I just go OK, so in this case, instead of using one of the data files that we've done previously, I'm now using that particular text file. I can still say, how I want to sort it out for most things. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to leave it on recnum. But then my criteria when I do it is saying, yes, I'm looking at the fields in the text file. So if I said I'm looking for people in a particular state from that file, and just like I do when I'm doing the normal report on Donman data, I can click on the question mark, and it will show me how many entries in my file have got that particular value. So in this case, I can see there's 51 records in Queensland. So I said I'm just looking for Queensland people. From there, everything is exactly the same pretty much as we do for the normal data file. I can choose what fields I want to show in my report. Yeah, so when I preview, I can see now, yes, even though I've got all sorts of different states in the actual text file that I've been given, I can extract that, turn it into a report, and just like Andrew was showing you previously, I can go through and make it different fonts and colors and sort of make that a little bit nicer. One of the other things I can do with this sometimes is, especially if I've got dollar amounts or something like that, or I want the state to be right justified or left or in the center, if you go to the Design tab, you'll have all your fields. and now I've got alignment, so I can center that particular column. So when I go back, it just means that sometimes you'll get a numeric value and a text value where the text value is left justified and the numeric is right, and when they're in a report, they seem to clash into each other. So you might want to go through and say, look, I want to do something, about centering that or making it left or something so that it's a little bit easier to read the report. Yeah. The same sort of thing where I've got record numbers, etc. If I choose the column of state, because in this case I don't have donor numbers, total column and count, then at the bottom of the report will show me that I've got 51 records that have been selected out of the 245 or something that are in my text file. So you can see that you can also use the report writer for reporting on external files, not just necessarily your Donman files. Okay. And exactly the same, if you were getting a report or a text file that was in the same format all the time, you could, save the file and basically have the report saved that automatically looked at that text file. So some organizations might get, a monthly dump of data that's always, similar fields in the same order, etc., but the file name will be slightly different, and of course that's not going to work. But if you did rename the file to say, here's my monthly, prospect import or whatever it may be, you could certainly set up the report to say, here's the data file, and have it formatted exactly how you want. So any of the fields, just like we have, in the donor records and everything, all of the fields are there. What I can't do is go back to the actual data in Donman because there's not necessarily any link. Whereas when I'm in donation file, I can go back to the donors, or when I'm in code pool, I can go back to the donors, or things like that, because there's a link between the actual data files. But in this case, it is just a flat text file. It has no link to my data, so I can't, really link that up in any way to allow me to report, double check if those people are in the system or things like that, because there's other programs that do that sort of duplicate checking. But you can see anything I add there, and just like Andrew said, in this case I've got title at the end. So you can add your fields once you get to the preview screen. If I've forgotten to add my post nominal, my title refuses to go for some reason. Again, if I look at my preview, and in this case I've got the post nominal field, and normally I would have that before the state. Again, just drag that to the left, and if there's any post nominals there, they'll be part of that. So hopefully that's opened up, a little bit of a avenue for people to, use VisRep for more things than just reporting on their Donman data. But certainly it's primarily designed for doing, stuff out of Donman. If you do a report where you've, said, look, I might have 5 different criteria on this later, when you're first doing the report, start at a broad level, like just say, I'm looking for everyone who's got an email address or something like that. But then you might say, I'm looking for everyone who's got an email address who's, in this particular state or in a postcode range or something like that. So you can always narrow down and add criteria. It's just a matter of, in most cases, getting the report to extract the majority of the data that you're looking for in the format that you're looking for, so the fields in the right order, etc. And from there you can always add criteria and say, okay, now I'm looking for that. So in this case I've got Queensland, so I could go back and say, but I'm also looking for surname starts with and whatever letter I might have. Yeah, so in this case I've narrowed down my list from 51 to 8 because I've just added that criteria. So exactly the same principles as you can do on your donor file, you can certainly do on an external text file. So hopefully that's given everyone a food for thought on that. And what I'll do now is hand back to Marla, and we'll go through questions, because I'm sure VisRep is one of the areas of Donman that does generate a lot of questions.
And wouldn't you know it, Gary, the fire alarm's about to start. So
okay.
Not great timing. What we might do is we'll finish up now, and any questions that have been logged, we will follow up individually, and we'll include in our next newsletter a compilation of those so we can share them around. Does that sound like a good idea instead?
How long is the fire alarm going to go for?
we don't know. We don't know how long it'll go for. So if there's nothing further to cover, the people that have posted questions, I will keep the line open so you can post questions up until for the next 10 minutes or so. And we'll, as I said, follow up with you individually afterwards and collate the feedback. So is that okay, Andrew and Gary?
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry for that.
That will have to do for today.
It's one of those things they surprise us with this fire alarm, so we weren't aware it would happen during this. So, so thank you, Gary and Andrew, for today's webcast. And I just let everybody know we won't be holding a live webcast in April due to the Easter break and Anzac Day. So our next webcast will be on Tuesday, the 20th of May. We do encourage you to take a look through our webcast library, and you can view that on our website at donman.net.au under the What's New item. And have a look through our webcast. We've got about 20 different topics there now. So if there's something you need a refresher on or you've got a new staff member, it's a really good resource to go to. And of course, if you have any further questions after we close off today's webcast, we encourage you to contact us on our email address of info_donman@advsol.com or give us a call, of course. So that concludes our webcast for today. Our sincere apologies for the quick run through today, but we hope to see you in May for our next live webcast. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.